Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're focusing on a political figure who, well, she tends to operate in the shadows, but her influence right now is, frankly, absolute.
We're talking about the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles.
Exactly. Politico had that famous line calling her the most feared and least known political operative in America. And we've got a stack of sources that really explain why.
That's a perfect place to start. We've collected some detailed reports on her career, deep dives into her lobbying history, and, well, some pretty critical whistleblower claims.
And when you put them all together,
You get a very complex picture. This isn't just about strategy. It's about the fundamental ethical and strategic direction of the entire administration.
so our mission today is to cut through all that noise. We wanted to find who Wiles is, understand the leverage her career gives her, and really get at the real-world impact of her appointment on policy.
Especially in areas like healthcare.
Yes, for someone this powerful, being least known is a huge strategic advantage. Okay, so let's unpack the operative first. Where do we even start?
You have to start with her history. I mean, it spans decades. She's worked for the whole spectrum of the Republican Party, Reagan, both Bushes, Romney. She is a political professional, pure and simple.
But the really juicy part of her story, the part that's almost political legend, is the whole Florida saga. The fact that she worked for both Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis.
And that speaks to her political ruthlessness. The sources we have suggest Wiles was absolutely instrumental in helping DeSantis win the governorship back in 2018.
Right, but then she was pushed out of his inner circle.
She was. And so you fast forward to the 2024 primaries, and a lot of people speculate that she just turned all that intimate knowledge, all her connections, right back against him.
Using it to, what, strategically orchestrate his downfall?
That's the theory. I mean, it's hard to overstate the value of a strategist who not only knows how to build a movement, but also knows exactly how to dismantle one from the inside out.
And you have to assume that expertise is why she has this job now. She's seen as the professional force that brought a level of strategic order to the 2024 campaign.
An order that many people said was just missing before.
Exactly. But what's fascinating is the psychological insight she seems to have. She's described as, what, reserved, calculating.
Very much so, and driven by this profound need to be needed. But the most telling detail in all the sources is this comparison she drew between the president and her own father.
The legendary sportscaster Pat Summerall. That's right.
Yes, and it's a critical comparison.
So what was she getting at? What was the connection she was making?
Well, she noted that both men had this immense, just undeniable talent and drive, but, and this is the key part, she also suggested they both had potentially unaddressed issues.
And Summerall's struggles with alcoholism were very public.
Extremely. So this isn't just some historical anecdote. It really hints that Wiles sees her role as less of a political assignment and more of a deep-seated personality management project.
A recognition that you need sheer discipline to harness a volatile but talented figure. Okay, that gives us a window into her whole management approach. But the line between that discipline and maybe self-interest gets very blurry when we look at her more recent work.
You mean her lobbying history?
Her lobbying history. She was a registered lobbyist from 2017 to at least April of this year, 2025, representing an almost unheard of 42 clients.
The scale is the issue. It really is. And the nature of those clients.
We're not talking about local Rotary clubs here.
No. Not at all. We are talking about vast, powerful interests that directly intersect with major federal policy. Her client roster included Republic Services. They handle radioactive waste disposal.
Okay, radioactive waste.
Then there was the Pebble Partnership tied to that extremely controversial Alaska mining project, and even Swisher Sweets, the tobacco company.
And she was lobbying for them while running the presidential campaign.
While running the campaign. That's what the sources show.
It's just... It's one thing to have a long career in politics, but to go straight from representing 42 corporations that need government favors into the highest gatekeeper role in the White House. That has to raise profound ethical questions for you, the listener.
It does, and those concerns just multiply when you drill down on Big Pharma. She had these deep ties to Mercury Public Affairs.
And they represent Pfizer, among others.
Pfizer and other major players, yes. And she also worked with Ballard Partners, who lobbied for companies making COVID-19 tests. The proximity to health policy is just immediate.
And this is where you hear the institutional alarm bells going off. Groups like Public Citizen weren't just asking for transparency.
No, they were recommending a permanent ban on her ever lobbying again after she leaves the White House.
Precisely because of that potential for her to cash in on this experience.
And this brings us to really the biggest grenade in the source material. It's the most significant allegation, and it's coming from whistleblowers close to the administration's base.
Which is?
The claim that Susie Wiles is still receiving money from Big Pharma. If that's true, it directly contradicts the entire idea that she's left her lobbying days behind to serve the public interest.
That is a staggering claim. It suggests a clear, immediate conflict of interest that could be influencing policy today, not just down the road.
And this leads right into the other claims, that Wiles is toxic and is actively working against the agenda of the administration's base, the very people who elected the president.
This is the central conflict in these sources, isn't it?
It is. The claims are very direct. She is accused of being the key gatekeeper, and this is a quote, of destroying the MAGA movement on purpose.
How? By controlling access.
By strictly controlling who gets in to see the president, and maybe more importantly, what policy proposals even see the light of day.
So tell us specifically what kind of reforms are being blocked. Why is this gatekeeping so harmful to the base's goals?
Well, we're seeing specific names mentioned. People who represent the alternative health and political reform movement, individuals like RFK Jr. and Jay Bhattacharya.
Who have been very vocal about radical health reforms.
Very vocal. And the sources allege they are just running into immediate roadblocks. Their efforts to enact deep, fundamental change are being wasted because they can't get past the Wiles-controlled gate.
And what about the media narrative? Is that also being controlled?
Apparently, yes. Her team is allegedly restricting access for independent alternative media for genuine journalists and preferring what the sources call access MAGA influencer types.
So it's a curated echo chamber.
That's the allegation. And this gatekeeping is also blamed for isolating the president, leading him to make comments on the economy that critics say just don't reflect the reality for the working class Americans who support him.
Okay, let's connect this directly to policy, especially healthcare. What's the evidence that her former clients' interests are winning out?
This is where you see the corporate favoring agenda apparently taking hold. Her influence is explicitly blamed for prioritizing policies that benefit pharmaceutical giants.
For example,
Promoting certain weight loss injections, or OMCS, through Medicaid.
we should pause there. For the listener, what is OMCS and why would that be a problem?
OMCS is just shorthand for a broad, data-driven, personalized medicine approach. Now, it sounds very high-tech and it can be beneficial,
Right.
but it often means favoring complex, expensive pharmaceutical solutions that are highly, highly profitable for Big Pharma. And critics argue this prioritization is happening at the expense of much simpler, more radical health reforms that the base actually wants.
Reforms focused on things like public health, diet, the environment.
Exactly. The kinds of fundamental changes that these critics argue are necessary for the U.S. to, and this is another quote, cognitively compete with China.
That sounds dramatic. What's the connection between cognitive competition and health policy?
Well, the source material argues that widespread processed food consumption, poor nutrition, chronic disease, that all of this is actively hindering national productivity and lowering intelligence metrics.
Putting the nation at a strategic disadvantage.
A severe one. So by favoring processed food companies like Nestle, who Wiles represented, and prioritizing these high-cost pharma interventions, the administration is allegedly missing a huge opportunity for a radical health reset.
It really does sound like a war for the administration's soul. So let's zoom out to the political machine that's supporting her, this so-called Florida blob.
The Florida blob, right. That's the term sources use to describe this powerful, very disciplined network of Florida GOP operatives.
And the theory is?
The theory is that this network is actively trying to stack the cabinet and other key federal jobs with people who serve the interests of the Florida political machine.
And their corporate clients, not necessarily the national good or the president's platform.
Precisely. And Wiles is seen as the single most crucial player in executing that strategy from inside the White House.
And we do see concrete examples of controversial picks that are allegedly being pushed by this network, picks that have angered the base.
Absolutely. Sources point to people like Pam Bondi, who's been criticized for her record on gun control and her office's role in the Trayvon Martin case investigation.
And what about foreign policy?
Well, another example is Congressman Mike Waltz, who is described as a Ukraine war hawk with deep ties to forces that had previously backed DeSantis, which, critics say runs completely contrary to the administration's stated foreign policy.
So you have this huge tension. On one side, you have the GOP establishment figures who see Wiles as the necessary discipline, the stability for a chaotic administration.
And on the other.
On the other, you have the base and these reformers who are worried she'll create what they call a political experiment defined by this conflict between her discipline and Trump's unpredictability.
The stakes just couldn't be higher. It's a battle for access, for policy, and for control, all mediated by her authority.
So let's summarize what we've really uncovered here. Susie Wiles is, without a doubt, a brilliant strategist. She has a proven track record of managing political chaos. But her extremely recent and extensive lobbying history, those direct Big Pharma ties, coupled with her alleged role as this key gatekeeper, it just raises serious, immediate ethical questions.
And this directly impacts the direction of policy, particularly in healthcare and foreign affairs. The ultimate test for Wiles isn't whether she can impose discipline. The real test is whether she can prioritize the public good over the interests of those 42 corporate clients she was representing right up until she took this job.
And if her influence continues to favor those corporate interests and the Florida blob,
Then critics warn it could severely damage public trust, alienate the base, and potentially jeopardize the whole presidency by sacrificing long-term goals for short-term corporate gains.
we see her strategic brilliance, we see her ability to build these powerful relationships, but because she has deliberately kept her own specific policy views so completely under wraps, it raises a really important question for you, the listener. In this high-stakes political chess game, where the gatekeeper holds all the cards, is Susie Wiles playing for the benefit of the American people? Or is she just the queen, strategically positioning pieces for the massive corporate interests she just finished representing? We encourage you to watch her specific policy actions and who benefits from them very, very closely.
The consequences of not paying attention are just too great.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more.